Hello, gang. It's Mr. Pedigo, and today's Thursday, so we have today, and then we have to take the exam tomorrow. So I'd be nervous. Just kidding. Don't be nervous. You can do this, but it's going to be long, and so that's sort of something you need to wrap your head around before you start taking it. It's going to take maybe an hour and a half, maybe in some cases even 2 hours. Okay. So I'm not trying to trip you up on this, but it's going to cover a lot of things. There's going to be much more. There'll be many more multiple choice questions on this exam. Okay, so you got to be able to go through multiple choice questions quickly. So the best way to do that is process of elimination. Because think about it: if you got to go through 20 multiple choice questions, or maybe 25 multiple choice questions, you can't get hung up on one, right? You need to be able to use process of elimination. I'm going to read to you a question that I had on a previous quiz. And it says, this car was made affordable to most Americans in the 1920s. It's multiple choice. So what car was made affordable to most Americans in the 1920s? And it has the Tesla Model X, the Ford Model T, the Bugatti, and the Ford Model F. Okay? Now, so we can basically, it's not a Bugatti and it's not a Tesla, so we can eliminate both of those. This is a silly question, but the principle's still there. That's between the Model T Ford and the Model F Ford. So if you had been reading and studying, you'd say, well, they never talked about a Model F Ford in the textbook. It had to be Model T, and they're both Ford models, so Model T it is. So you could effectively eliminate 3 answers until you got down to the best, most logical answer. So then, guys, with the short answer questions, if you read the instructions, I always say that, please answer these questions in 2 to 3 sentences, okay? So right off the bat, what I'm looking at when I see somebody has answered a question in less than those sentences I outlined in the instructions, I immediately take off points, because the reason I ask you to do 2 to 3 is I think that's what it takes with a short answer question to answer the question and explain it. That's what you're supposed to do. So here's an example. Why was the Kellogg-Briand pack ineffective? So if I wanted to answer that question in 2 sentences, let's say I thought I could do this in 2 and get a good grade, that'll both meet the required number of sentences, and I think I could do this effectively. The first sentence, I would restate the question. I'd say the Kellogg-Briand pack was ineffective because it had no means of enforcing what it sought to accomplish, period. The Kellogg-Briand pact sought to outlaw war, and the United States thought this was a good idea, as did a bunch of other countries. That covers all the ground I need to, right? But I did it. I hit the minimum number of sentences. I restated the question, and I used the best spelling and grammar possible. So what about with long answer questions? Same thing, man. You gotta spend some time on I'll try to make it so there's not a whole. There maybe will be one long answer question on this exam, and you really got to make it count, because again, if I say 8 to 12 sentences or 10 to 12 sentences, the reason I'm asking that is because I think that is the minimum number of sentences you need to adequately explain and answer the question. So to give you an example, what was the Scopes trial? What do you think about what happened? How does the trial relate to separation of church and state? What are your thoughts on who was right and who was wrong? So clearly I've asked a lot of questions there, so you have plenty of directions to go, and you want to make this as organized as possible. So if you were responding to that in a long answer, you would start by explaining what was the Scopes trial. The Scopes trial was blah, 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 that occurred in Tennessee, and blah, 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 and this happened and this happened. Then I would explain, well, what do I think about that, and how does it relate to church and state? Separation of church and state. You want to be methodical. Use the lessons you've learned from writing when you're writing these long and short answer questions on the final exam. So that's what I would say to you guys. I'd say study really hard today. Study just what I told you to study in the videos. Study your outlines instead of studying the entire textbook. I think the outlines are a much more effective way of studying. And make sure you use process of elimination with multiple choice questions. Make sure that you read the instructions on your short and your long answer questions so you avoid getting points taken off for silly stuff like not restating the question or not having the minimum number of sentences. Again, I don't think that those minimum number of sentences is something crazy. I think that's just like the bare minimum of how many sentences it would take to adequately answer and explain your answer. So good luck, guys. Let me know if you have any questions, and we will take this exam tomorrow. We will be done for the year. Peace.